Well, hi guys, welcome, and who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. Are you a Who Dat fan? If you're a Who Dat fan, subscribe to my channel. Think of me as a friend or a coworker who loves the Saints as much as you do. When you see me, you say, "Hey Joe, what's up about them Saints? What you think?" And man, let me be done told you a story, Sha. That's what these videos are about. And you guys leave your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. I respond to my comments. And today we're going to wrap up our 2025 season end wrap up. These are reflections on our Saints this past season. And this is part two. We're going to be talking about the defense as well as a bunch of other stuff, including probably special teams as well. All right, so just wanted to ramble on a little bit longer today about our boys. We finished the season 6-11. And, we talked about positional breakdowns on the offense in the last video, part one, as well as me just talking about the season in general. Everyone seems pretty excited. I'm excited. The salary cap we're not that far over the salary cap, so it just takes a couple of restructures, and all of a sudden we're going to have plenty of money to play with, and then we get to go and hit free agency and grab some more players. Well, I think in free agency, probably the biggest target for everyone would be on the offensive side. People talking about we should go spend a bunch of money in free agency on offensive linemen, particularly at guard. And I've got videos talking about the free agent class of guards this year. My cats. Anyway, yeah, you can get a guy from Buffalo, Edwards. That's going to cost you almost 20 million. Or you can get Ingram, former LSU player out of the Texans. He's looking for probably 12 to 14 million. Got a couple of free agents coming out of Cleveland that I talked about before. I think you should re-sign Dylan Reduns as a backup guard, and then you go and get one guy, a starter, preferably Edwards. But yeah, that might be 3 years, $60 million. Of course, you can adjust the contract where you're not spending all of your free money on the guy. But anybody else on offense that you want to target as a free agent besides the offensive line would have to be some low money guys. Maybe if you want to get a veteran running back, I don't want to spend $10 million on a veteran running back. I like finding pieces, cheap pieces there. If you want to go get a couple more receivers or something like that, I just don't see us spending $10 million to go and get a specific player on offense. On defense, that's a different story. I don't want to spend a lot of money on an edge rusher, but we may need to spend some money on defensive linemen. I think Jonathan Bullard is a free agent this year, and Jonah Williams, Chris Rump, players like that are on our team now. We could reinvest and bring those back for kind of cheap. But to go and get a big name defensive lineman, that would be expensive. I mean, they would have to be young and good, and you'd have to get the perfect deal. There's just not a lot of players like that available. Usually, when someone drafts a really good defensive lineman, they keep them around. And by the way, that's the same thing with the offensive line. You draft offensive linemen, and then you pay them and keep them around. Most of the time, people just don't let their great offensive linemen hit the market. You know, perfect example for the Saints was Teron Armstead, where we had a choice of re-signing him, but there were injury concerns, and we were trying to save money at the time. We thought perhaps we had a few options at tackle. We had drafted Trevor Penning, and had I think Andres Pete at the time, and we went ahead and let Teron Armstead test the market. He ends up signing a contract with Miami, and they end up paying him whatever it was, 15, 20 million a year. And he played a few years with Miami, and he was hurt and missed some games, but that was the kind of decision the Saints had to make. That was a player with injury concerns. The same could be said for Jenkins coming out of Cleveland this year. You'll see him in the free agent market. You'll probably only get him for around the same contract that you could re-sign Dylan Reduns. But that guy Jenkins on the offensive line for Cleveland can't stay healthy, and so it's situations like that. You get a guy who actually is healthy and's playing pretty good. You usually keep him in your building. Cesar Ruiz comes to mind. People wonder, why are we paying him 14 million a year? Well, because we drafted him. He was a decent offensive lineman. He stayed healthy. We paid our own guy. So drafting an offensive lineman is usually the best way to improve your team on the offensive line. You draft guys, you hit on them, you re-sign them. Really good players just don't hit the market. So that's something to keep in mind. People are talking about hitting offensive line with free agency. I'm doing the same thing. I expect us to have money to play with, and that's the position I want to put the most money towards. That's my decision. That's the decision I would make. It's not like uh, Edwards from Buffalo is a guaranteed to sign with the Saints. He's got 31 other teams, including his own team, Buffalo, who's a perennial playoff team, to choose from. So just because you want to spend a bunch doesn't mean there's a bunch out there to go and get. There's one guy I want to go and get that I know is going to come in and start. Ingram could come in and start. He had a history of problems when he was young, but it seems to have worked all that out. And yeah, you end up paying a guy like that the same amount that you paid Cesar Ruiz to retain him. So I'm just saying the draft is tricky, and there's a spot in the draft where offensive linemen become pretty valuable at that point. And yeah, sometimes sometimes I think drafting offensive linemen and then keeping them and re-signing them and stuff like that. That's the way you build it in your offensive line. It's hard to go and find a stud. If there's a stud in free agency, there's a reason for it. Why Edwards would want to leave Buffalo, I have no idea. Maybe Buffalo wants to cap their spending at a certain amount, and maybe we can outbid Buffalo or something like that. But so anyway, defensive line, Jonathan Bullard. That would be a nice guy to go and re-sign. I like Bullard. We've got Brian Bresee on the defensive line. We've got Davin Gotchaw, and we've got Nathan Shepard. So you re-sign Jonathan Bullard. He came up pretty big in the last couple of weeks when Brian Bresee was injured. Our run defense looks pretty good in the last couple of weeks. Brian Bresee's missed the last couple of weeks. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Not only can you improve from guys like Nathan Shepard and Jonathan Bullard on the defensive line, you can also improve, especially at run defense, on Brian Bresee. No, we're not getting rid of Bresee anytime soon. I've said that before. But yeah, how much can you re-sign Jonathan Bullard for? A couple of guys like that on the defensive line that's really good at stopping the run, wouldn't be bad moves. We got Bullard for pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure we can re-sign him for pretty cheap. I want to upgrade on the defensive line though. So are there any guys in free agency? I haven't looked at the free agent list of defensive linemen. And it's not just run stopping that we need to be better at. We need pass rush from our defensive line too. I mean, our pass rush this year came from the edges. Carl Granderson had 6 sacks. Chase Young had 10 sacks. Cam Jordan, 10.5 sacks. So, yeah, the next guy on the list is Chris Rumph with 2. Alante Taylor had 2. I think Nathan Shepard had 2. Pete Werner had 2. Yeah, all of your sacks came from three guys basically. So on the edge, Jordan, Young, Granderson. So we could definitely get a pass rush going from the defensive line. As far as the edge rushers go, I think that we're not in a bad position. We end up in the top 10 in sacks, two double digit guys. Can Cam Jordan replicate that and get another 10 sacks next year at 37 years old? I don't know. Those are the questions to answer. I want to keep Cam and I want to keep him in a rotation, but I would really like a stud opposite Young. Carl Granderson is a stud from time to time, but he's hot and cold. We know it. In 17 games, he stood out in like six of them. And in the other 11, he just kind of disappears. He's kind of in the wash with the rest of the players. So, but getting that stud edge rusher that's going to play down in, down out opposite Chase Young, that's a tall task. You got to go get a Reuben Bain, maybe a David Bailey, maybe TJ Parker could do it. And then get a guy like Keldrick Falk. He's going to end up playing defensive end. But a lot of the edge rushers that fit this defense might end up being just a rotational piece, just specific pass rusher. So, Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson and Chase Young on early downs, and then third down, passing downs come late in the game when the other team's trailing. That time comes, and then you've got your speed edge rusher out there with Chase Young every down. So there's a world where we draft an edge rusher whose specialty is rushing the passer, who you'll want to have out there on third downs, and uh, and then we still live with Chase Young, Cam Jordan, and Carl Granderson, and then you get that guy to come in from time to time, and let him develop. Eventually, Cam retires. You have your piece there still. Still think you could re-sign Chris Rump and keep your edges good and healthy. But you go and get a real stud at edge rusher, then maybe you trade Carl Granderson. I wouldn't be surprised if a team would trade a day two pick for Carl Granderson. He's a active player. I'm just saying, it's one of them things. Uh, Carl Granderson on third down, rushing the passer. It's not the worst thing in the world. Cam Jordan on third down rushing the passer, not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think edge rusher is a big need. And defensive line. We need to improve that defensive line. So I say you re-sign Bullard and uh and you keep your options open in the draft when it comes to all types of defensive linemen, whether you get a big nose tackle type to eventually replace Godchaw, or whether you go and get, three tech defensive tackles who can play on the end and you try to upgrade there. And like I said, edge rusher, you got to get a stud if he's going to be an every down guy, or you can get a specialty player. A guy like Joshua Josephs out of Tennessee, who's really good at rushing the passer, who's only like 240 something pounds, linebacker size, not sure what he's going to give you in early downs. You've got Carl Granderson and Chase Young and Cam Jordan for that. So, but I don't want to spend a really high draft pick, first round draft pick on a guy that's not going to play every down. So that's the caveats there. Linebacker, we're set. If Demario Davis wants to come back, I don't see how he wouldn't be your starter in the middle. And then next to him is Pete Werner, Danny Stutzman, Isaiah Stallbird, Jalen Ford. So we're good at linebacker. Uh, there are teams out there who probably would trade a fourth round, third round, or fourth round pick for Pete Werner. I'm thinking this. A team that wants number two linebacker that's good for 80 tackles a year, who's always around the ball. Pete Werner led the team in fumble recoveries this year. He had three of them, I think. Chase Young had three too. So Pete's got a nose for the ball. He was second on a team in tackles, even though he got rotated out a bunch. Uh, so there's that. There's that option. Um, I've had the St. Louis Rams give me their late round three pick for Pete Werner throughout this entire season. Every mock I did, if I had a chance to trade Pete Werner, the Rams always took him. They always gave me their late third, and almost any team would give you their fourth. So it's just an option. I'm just saying, Demario Davis is eventually going to retire, so you don't want to strip the room too bare. But getting a linebacker is not the greatest need right now, especially if you re-sign Demario Davis. Davis, Werner, Stallbird, Danny Stutzman, Jalen Ford. I think you're looking good. Oh, in the secondary, man, you got to re-sign Julian Blackman. It was so exciting for Brandon Staley to have Julian Blackman, and Julian Blackman was a freak getting to the ball. In the short time we had him in training camp, he was picking off passes every other game and every other practice, I should say. So, I'm not Sam Boo. So, yeah, I think Julian Blackman is a re-sign. Justin Reed, among the league leader, among the team leaders in tackles this year. He was in the top seven in tackles, and yeah, he did miss a game or two. Had one interception for a touchdown. Had a couple of tackles for losses. Justin Reed to me was pretty good, pretty solid, but for 10, 11, 12 million a year like we're spending on him, he wasn't making the standout plays that I expected from a guy making that amount of money. So if Julian Blackman comes in, does he take Justin Reed's place? We want Jonas Sanker out there at safety every down. So but I like that idea of getting Blackman back. And if you get Blackman back with Reed and with Jonas Sanker, and you still have Jordan Howden, I think this might be Howden's last year next year. Then yeah, I'm really good at safety. I like the idea of keeping Ugo Amadi around too. Good special teams player, can play nickel, can play outside corner and safety. So keep that guy around, and then you've got five safeties, and you're really good. Julian Blackman back on this team would be a great addition, and it wouldn't cost you a lot. I'm thinking you're gonna probably have to spend a little more than you spent last year. I know it's crazy, but you'll probably have to spend a little more because somebody saw how good he was in the offseason, maybe in just that one game. He's the highest rated PFF rated Saints player this year. He only had the one game. So yeah, I like safety. But Caleb Downs is a guy in the draft that's supposed to be generational. So, and yeah, I'm not against improving the DB room, especially at cornerback. But when you talk about safeties, you're also talking about a potential star player and guys that can make an impact in this Brandon Staley defense. So, talking about cornerback, Alante Taylor's the big one. He's going to want a lot of money. Top tier nickel money would get you 12 to 15 million. He wants to get paid like an outside cornerback. Of course he does. Other teams may value him that way. The assumption is that he's going to be asking for, or he's going to get anywhere from 10 to 12 million. And I think that's a little low. I think that, that sports track thing, how Sam, he's got my sock. You stop it. Uh, the sports track thing that assumes the contracts. They're saying Alante Taylor is going to demand probably 3 years, 33 million. I'm saying that's low. That's a low ball. Don't do that. Sour Patch. That's low balling. I think that Alante Taylor's contract is going to be at least $15 million when it's all done, wherever he goes. Somebody's going to pay him. And yeah, I was flirting with 17 million to keep him in the building. Now that's if Brandon Staley values Alante Taylor as his star, and he seems like he does. It's going to be really hard to replace a guy like that if you just want to go and grab a guy. I mean, it's going to have to be someone Brandon Staley's very excited about, perhaps familiar with. Maybe there's some aging veteran out there who Brandon Staley's worked with before who can man that star. You know, Terrell Burgess comes to mind. That guy. We went and got him as like a safety option. Okay, Ugo Amadi's going to be our backup nickel. Terrell Burgess can play the nickel. He can also play safety. So he was a great pickup for Brandon Staley. Cheap, doesn't have to go out there and be an all-star, but when needed, he popped in and he knew the system and he was effective. A guy like that, who Brandon Staley feels like could man the star, and you won't lose so much if you let Taylor walk. That's an option. But I think a bigger option would be that we go out and get Staley's guy for the very all important star role, Not to mention the cornerback and the safety who Staley's always had a guy at cornerback, at safety, at the star who was a standout. So I could see the Saints spending money in the secondary on defense. So as far as free agency goes, that's what I'm thinking. This defense could use an upgrade on the line, and you can never have enough DBs. So that's where I expect the draft picks to go and the free agent money to go on defense. So yeah, would I resign Alante Taylor? I would. I would try to resign him for as cheap as possible, but I think there's going to be teams out there wanting to take a chance. I mean, we would have loved to have re-signed Paulson Adebo. We just didn't want to spend $17.5 million. And that was right around the kind of price you would expect to pay. So Adebo did okay with the Giants. He wasn't a failure, I don't think. We didn't have a chance to pick on him too much when we beat the Giants. He might have had one penalty when we played them. Adebo always was good for that. But you getting off pretty cheap right now at cornerback with Kool-Aid McKinstry and with Quincy Riley. So yeah, there's money in that room to be spent. Alante Taylor may be the guy to get it. Saints fans, let me know what you think about it because Alante Taylor's hot and cold. I think his overall numbers are good enough where, you want a player. You have, we're not just going to go get anybody else that's going to come up with them numbers. All right. We need a guy that's going to produce those numbers. As much as we hate that Taylor's cold sometimes, he misses some tackles. He was still on the field for a large percentage. I think he might have been third or fourth on the team in total snaps. Demario Davis led the team in snaps. 37 years old, this guy's out there playing every snap. I mean, we were rotating in young linebackers to see what they had, but we weren't taking Davis off the field. We were taking Werner off the field. And that man, Davis, played the most snaps out of anybody. And next on the list is Kool-Aid McKinstry and Alante Taylor. And Kool-Aid's a solid guy. I still feel like he's a high level number two. He's proven a lot to me. I like having Kool-Aid McKinstry. Really like Quincy Riley. There were some games when he had the lowest or one of the lowest ratings of anyone on the team. There were several games where Sanker and Riley both struggled, but there were a couple of games when Sanker and Riley were the highest rated guys too. And overall, Riley did okay. If you look at his final rankings, you wouldn't know from afar, how good he really did perform. I like what Riley did. A lot of ups and downs, but that's what you expect from a fourth round guy. And yeah, keeping him in the mix is a must. But And we need one more cornerback, one more guy. And that's if you re-sign Taylor. Now, we get the comp pick for a Debo this year, fourth round. That frees up Isaac Yadam to be available to play on defense now. We were kind of keeping him on the shelf because we wanted that comp pick, but we still have Yadam under contract for 2 more years, so he's there. I know we can improve at fourth cornerback from Yadam. So cornerback's a big deal for me. And if you want to focus on star cornerback slash safety, could be a big deal, a really big deal if you sign Taylor to what I think he's going to demand, or if you try to improve or move from Taylor, you're still going to have to spend money. So yeah, I see money going towards defensive line, and I see money going towards DB. Uh, and I see some free agent money going to guard. All right. Overall, the defense, I really thought Brandon Staley was going to struggle. I thought there was no way our running game was going to be very good. And this dink and dunk, bend don't break stuff, you tend to get a lot of yards accumulated against you. So I think overall we finished in yardage. Um, I want to say in total yardage, we, against the pass, we were top 10. I think overall we were hovering around top 10, but against the run, I think we were 20th. But we were in the top five when it came to yards per carry that we allowed as a defense, which is a good sign. A lot of that had to do with those goal line stands, man. We had what 8 opportunities in one game, and we stuffed them on seven. So yeah, that's 7 carries right there where the running back got less than a yard. So stuff like that we were good at. Then there were times when this defense couldn't get off the field on third and long. There were times when give us a third and short, we'll take it. Third and long, we couldn't figure it out. So there were some ups and some downs with this defense. And overall, I just didn't think that this defense was capable of, not allowing yards. Keeping teams out of the end zone, maybe. But allowing yards, when you play off at cornerback like that, and you can watch our defense sometimes with the system Staley runs, our cornerbacks are like 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. I mean, 5 yard quick out every time, works every time. You just dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. So yeah, and then as far as the running game goes, I looked at Staley's numbers when he was a head coach with the Chargers, and the running game was just never, the running defense was never very good. So, to my surprise, the defense overall, when it's all said and done, not bad. A big surprise for me. So I'm excited. I just need to see a lot more versus the run. Um, we end up with really good sack numbers, but it took a couple of really good games toward the end of the year to get those numbers. And as far as forcing turnovers, I don't think we forced that many. And Brandon Staley's defense, throughout its history, hasn't forced a lot of turnovers, a lot of mixed match. We've had some passes defensed. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry ended up with, I want to say, 8 or 10 passes defense this year, which is really good. Taylor had like 11, which is very good. Uh, let's talk about special teams. I think we need another punter. I hate to ruin the field goal operation by taking the punter out of there, but right now, the only thing I like Kai Kroger for is his holding. I'm sure other punters can hold. Charlie Smith, he's got a natural draw to the left with his kicks. And if we're on the left hash mark, he tends to miss. He hasn't figured out that sweet spot. he has a natural draw to the left. So when he's kicking from the right hash, ball goes in. When he's kicking from the middle, it's closer to being, perfect. It's that kick from the left hash that's driving me. And I don't want to have to run the little right hash every dang third down thinking I need to set my kicker up. I'm trying to get a first down here, people. So Charlie Smith needs to figure that out. He's got the leg of the ages, and it's a story that I want to be a success story. And I want it to be one of those, not just a Rocky success story where, where he made it on the field, right? No, I want it to be a Rocky 2 success story where he wins the belt. Okay, so I want this guy to be good. He goes out there and only misses, 4 or 5 or 6 kicks a year. You can live with it, but I'd really like for him to be one of the best in the league. A weapon, which is what it feels like he can be. But you're not going to be a weapon if you keep missing these mid-range kicks from the left hash. So I say you get a new punter. I say you keep Charlie Smith around. Maybe bring in a couple of kickers in camp and try to have a competition. I think Charlie Smith beats them all out when it's all said and done. But it's not going to be because of consistency and accuracy. If Charlie Smith becomes consistent and accurate, then yeah, yeah, we're never going to look for another kicker again. But we definitely need another punter, and we need another special teams coach. Phil Galliano, just too many bad things. Having a punt blocked in the Seattle game was awful. The special teams in the Seattle game was awful, and that was early in the year. You get a punt blocked in the last game of the year with Taysom Hill out there as your punt protector. I mean, two guys came straight up the middle. Taysom had to pick one. He picked one. The other guy got through. I don't know what's going on there, but the coverage was okay. There were games against really good returners when we intentionally kicked the ball through the end zone because we didn't want to have to deal with it. I think coverage teams are okay. Isaac Yatta did great in coverage. Isaiah Stallbird, Danny Stutzman, they did great. Michael Davis stayed on this team as a seventh cornerback because he was fulfilling a role on special teams. Yeah, we've got good special team players. I think we need a change there. I think Phil Galliano is part of the old, and we need to usher in the new. Man, I would love to get Darren Rizzi back, keep Galliano as his assistant. I would love to do that because Darren Rizzi seemed like the greatest special teams coach ever. We've had some good special teams coaches throughout this franchise's existence. But yeah, special teams is something to look at. Upgrade the coach and make sure you maintain your pieces. But definitely go get a punter and hope for the best with the kicker. All right, that's my reflections, part two, focusing on the defense. Yeah, I'm thinking in the draft, you need to focus on defensive line. It would be nice to get an edge rusher. It sounds really good, but they're few and far between. There's a chance you get a good edge rusher that's just a rotational piece, and that would be like a day two, day three pick. You go ahead and grab one in the first round. Try to go ahead and grab your stud, future edge rusher, and yeah, you're going to be trying to scrape by with other positions of need. Running back, wide receiver. We've got a lot of positions we want to address in the draft. I think cornerback is another one. Safety could be. Edge rusher, whether that's a linebacker or a defensive end. So lots of areas to look at. Like I said, offense. I think this draft should focus mainly on the offense. I think we should go get us another piece of tight end. I think we need a young guy that's going to develop on the offensive line. and we need another wide receiver. We need running backs. So building the offense around Shuck is a great idea. My starlight right here, my little alien piggy right here, Star. But yeah, defense is something to look at too. Defensive lineman, edge rusher, DBs. All right, there you go. That's going to conclude my 2025 reflections. Tomorrow, I'm giving you a mock draft, so subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. Tomorrow, I'm giving you a mock draft with no trades, and yeah, I've already done the draft, and yeah, so many ways it could have gone. For the first two rounds, I'm going to show you the players that are available on the board before I tell you who I picked. So, not only can you tell me where I screwed up, but I can also tell you myself where I screwed up. And, we'll look at all the players and all the different ways you could go about it in the first couple of rounds. And those are kind of the kind of videos I'll be doing all off season long. So subscribe. My Who Dat family. Until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who Dat?